Hello, curious minds. Welcome to this new journey of discovery. Today, we're going to explore a feeling we all know too well, but from a perspective that might change the way you see it forever. So join me for this deep dive. Have you ever stopped to think about that constant feeling of haste, that undercurrent of urgency that pushes you to do more, to be more, to achieve more? It's a relentless pressure, an engine that never shuts off, keeping you in a state of continuous alert. The question we need to ask ourselves is this: have we normalized anxiety to the point of turning it into the invisible fuel of our modern society? Is this state of perpetual unrest the price we pay for progress, or is there something darker at play? To begin, we must understand what it means to normalize something. Normalizing isn't just accepting. It's integrating a behavior or a state so deeply into our daily lives that we stop questioning it, assuming it's the default setting of our existence. Anxiety, in its most basic form, is a survival response. It's our body's alarm system, designed to warn us of imminent danger. Our ancestors needed it to escape predators. It was a tool for survival. But what are today's predators? They're no longer saber-toothed tigers. Now, their deadlines, incessant notifications, the pressure of workplace competition, and constant social media comparison. They are abstract threats, but our biology responds with the same intensity. This is where sociology comes in. Certain studies suggest that our culture has glorified being busy. A narrative has been created where exhaustion is a badge of honor, proof that you're productive, that you're important in the economic system. This mindset is known as hustle culture. It's the idea that you must sacrifice your rest, your leisure, and your well-being on the altar of success. It's an ideology that tells us if you're not suffering a little, you're not trying hard enough. Think about it for a moment. How many times have you heard someone proudly say they only slept 4 hours because of work? Or how many times have you felt guilty for taking a break, for doing absolutely nothing for an entire afternoon? That guilt is a symptom. Anxiety thus becomes a mechanism of social control. It keeps us productive, pushing us to keep running on the treadmill without asking why we're running. The fear of falling behind, of becoming irrelevant, is an incredibly powerful motivator, and the system knows it. Then we have the role of consumerism. Modern advertising is adept at creating anxieties we didn't even know we had. They tell us we're not thin enough, rich enough, popular enough, or attractive enough, but that we can buy the solution to those problems. Every advertisement presents an idealized version of life, packaged happiness. The gap between that fantasy and our reality generates constant anxiety, a perpetual desire to acquire more to fill a void that isn't actually material. In this way, anxiety not only makes us better workers, but also better consumers. It's a self-feeding cycle. We work harder under the pressure of anxiety to earn money, and then we spend that money to calm the very anxiety the system generated in us. And of course, we cannot ignore the digital elephant in the room, social media. These platforms are anxiety incubators by design. They expose us to an endless stream of seemingly perfect lives, creating an impossible standard to reach. The fear of missing out, known as FOMO, is the dread that others are having rewarding experiences from which you are absent. Social media amplifies this fear to a global and constant level, 24 hours a day. Every like, every comment, every notification is a small dose of validation our brain craves. We become addicted to this external approval, and its absence generates deep social anxiety and a feeling of invisibility. Even our way of communicating has changed. The pressure to respond instantly to messages, to always be available, has blurred the lines between work and personal life, between public and private, creating a state of alert that never rests. Psychologists at Harvard University have pointed out how this information and stimulus overload depletes our cognitive resources. Our brain is not designed to process this amount of data and social interactions simultaneously. The result is mental exhaustion. Now, this isn't about demonizing technology or hard work. Ambition and the desire for improvement are inherent to human nature. The problem arises when the system hijacks these natural impulses and converts them into a source of chronic and generalized anxiety. We've created a society that values the appearance of productivity more than actual productivity, and the accumulation of experiences to display more than the genuine enjoyment of those experiences. We live for the feed, for the resume, for the external image. Normalized anxiety also has a dangerous effect. It robs us of the present. When we're constantly worried about the future, about the next goal, about the next task, we're unable to be fully in the here and now. The moment slips away from us. We become ghosts in our own lives, always thinking about what comes next, planning, optimizing, worrying. The philosopher Alan Watts spoke of this, how we live in a constant pursuit of a future that, when it arrives, is lived with the same anxiety for the next future. This state of affairs has real physical consequences. Neuroscience studies have shown that chronic stress, which is the physical manifestation of prolonged anxiety, can damage our brains, impair our memory, and weaken our immune system. It's not just a simple feeling of nervousness. It's a condition that silently but relentlessly corrodes our health from the inside out. It's the slow wearing down of our being, accepted as the normal cost of modern life. The real twist, the most unsettling idea, is that this system isn't necessarily a conscious conspiracy. There isn't a group of people in a dark room designing how to make us anxious. It's more subtle. It's a system that has evolved to favor these traits. Companies that promote extreme productivity and consumerism simply thrive more in this environment. Platforms that capture our attention more effectively survive and grow. It's a kind of cultural natural selection, where anxiety is the adaptation that has become dominant. We've been sold the idea that happiness is a destination reached after an arduous journey of anxiety and sacrifice. But what if happiness isn't a place to arrive, but a way of traveling, a way we've forgotten how to practice? By normalizing anxiety, we've also stigmatized calm. Tranquility is mistaken for laziness. Stillness is seen as a lack of ambition. Taking time to do nothing, to simply be, is almost an act of rebellion in today's world. The solution, therefore, isn't simply individual. It's not enough to meditate or do yoga, though these tools are incredibly useful. It requires a collective awakening, a recognition that the rules of the game we're playing might be fundamentally broken. The first step is to denormalize anxiety in our own minds. It's to stop seeing it as a badge of honor and start seeing it for what it is, a signal that something, either in our lives or our environment, is unbalanced and needs attention. It means questioning the narrative of productivity at all costs, asking ourselves if the next promotion or the next purchase will truly bring us the peace we seek, or if it's just a temporary distraction from a deeper unease. It involves setting clear boundaries, learning to say no. No to extra work that sacrifices your health. No to social pressure that forces you to live a life that isn't yours. No to constant digital connection that robs you of mental peace. It's about redefining success. Perhaps true success isn't how much you have in the bank, but how much peace you have in your mind. It's not how many followers you have, but how deep your real connections are. From an anthropological perspective, human cultures have historically had communal rituals and times of rest and celebration. We've largely replaced these spaces of genuine connection with the individualistic pursuit of goals. Reclaiming those spaces is vital. We need more real conversations and fewer superficial interactions. We need more time in nature and less time in front of screens. We need to remember our shared humanity. Anxiety thrives in isolation. When we believe we're the only ones struggling, its power over us multiplies. But the moment we share our experience, we realize it's a collective burden. This is not a call to inaction or resignation. On the contrary, it's a call to more conscious action. Action that comes from a place of purpose and choice, not from diffuse fear and external pressure. It's recognizing that we are more than our productivity. We are complex beings with emotional, spiritual, and social needs that hustle culture completely ignores. Our worth doesn't lie in what we do, but in who we are. The next time you feel that wave of anxiety, that rush to do something, anything, stop for a second. Ask yourself, where is this feeling coming from? Is it a real threat, or is it the echo of a system that has taught you to never be at peace? Becoming aware is the most powerful act of rebellion. By observing the mechanism, we stop being a mere cog within it. We gain the ability to choose how to respond instead of simply reacting by instinct. So anxiety isn't the enemy to conquer. It's a messenger telling us that we are living out of sync with our own nature, in an environment that is often hostile to our psychological well-being. Listening to that messenger, instead of silencing it with more work, more distractions, or more consumption, is the beginning of a more authentic path. A path where the goal isn't endless productivity, but wholeness and connection. We've explored how society, work culture, consumerism, and technology weave a web that fosters a state of constant anxiety. But it's crucial to understand that recognizing this doesn't make us victims, it empowers us. Power lies in understanding. By understanding the external forces that influence our internal state, we can begin to navigate our lives in a more intentional way, distinguishing between our own ambitions and imposed pressures. Stoic philosophy, for example, teaches us to differentiate between what we can control and what we cannot. We cannot control society's expectations, but we can control our response to them. Therein lies our freedom. It's not about abandoning the world, but about building an inner fortress. A mental space where the storms of external pressure cannot dismantle our calm. A refuge we cultivate through self-awareness and deliberate choice. Let's consider the concept of junk time. We spend hours passively consuming content or worrying about things outside our control. Reclaiming that time for active rest, for hobbies, for real connection, is a revolutionary act. The pressure for self-optimization is also a trap. The idea that we must always be improving, learning a new language, perfecting a skill. Sometimes the healthiest act is simply allowing yourself to be imperfect, to be enough just as you are. In many ways, our society has medicalized a social problem. We treat anxiety with individual solutions when its roots are often collective. It's like putting a Band-Aid on a gaping wound that needs much deeper surgery. That's why talking about this is so important. These conversations create cracks in the dominant narrative. Every time someone admits to feeling overwhelmed, it gives permission to another to feel the same, weakening the power of stigma and isolation. Younger generations seem to be increasingly aware of this problem. There's a growing movement that questions the relentless grind culture and advocates for a healthier work-life balance, which is a sign of hope. It's the rejection of the idea that we must sell ourselves body and soul to an employer or a goal in exchange for a promise of future security or happiness. It's the demand to live fully in the present, not just survive while waiting for the weekend. Let's remember that social systems are not immutable. They are human constructs, and as such can be deconstructed and reconstructed. Cultural change begins with a shift in individual consciousness that spreads like a ripple. Normalized anxiety robs us of our capacity to dream. It keeps us focused on survival and crisis management instead of on creation, exploration, and imagining different and better futures. By challenging this norm, we not only reclaim our mental peace, but also our creative power. The power to imagine and build a reality where productivity serves humanity and not the other way around. Don't underestimate the power of small acts of resistance. Choosing a book instead of your phone, taking a leisurely stroll, having a conversation without distractions. Each of these acts is a vote for a different way of life. The next time you feel guilty for resting, remember that rest isn't the absence of productivity, it's an essential part of it. It's the fertile ground where creativity, clarity, and well-being grow. Anxiety feeds on the future, on the what-ifs. One way to counteract it is to firmly anchor yourself in the present, in physical sensations. The feel of your clothes, the air you breathe, the sounds around you. That is real. Most anxiety is not. The system wants us distracted, worried, and competing with each other, because that way we are easier to manage, more predictable. Calm, clarity, and cooperation are in essence threats to that established order. So the final question isn't how we eliminate anxiety from our lives. That's impossible. The question is, how do we stop allowing it to be the main engine and instead turn it into a simple compass that occasionally points out an imbalance? Here comes the climax of our reflection. Normalized anxiety is not just an unfortunate byproduct of modern life. It is a functional and necessary feature of the current socioeconomic system. It's not a bug in the system, it's part of its operating system. A worker anxious about losing their job is a worker who won't ask for a raise. A consumer anxious about their social status is a consumer who will buy products they don't need. An anxious population is a docile population. This perspective changes everything. It stops being a personal problem we must solve in solitude and becomes a structural problem we must collectively recognize. Your anxiety isn't your failure, it's the success of a system that wants you this way. The wellness industry, though often well-intentioned, can fall into the trap of selling individual solutions to this systemic problem. It teaches you to breathe better in a cage instead of helping you see the bars of the cage. The goal shouldn't simply be to manage anxiety so we can remain productive within the very system that generates it. The goal should be to transform the system so it doesn't generate toxic levels of anxiety in the first place. Normalization is the anesthesia that prevents us from feeling the pain of a societal wound. It makes us believe the problem lies with us, in our inability to adapt, rather than in the toxicity of the environment we're trying to adapt to. Think about how language has changed. Stress almost sounds positive, like a sign of importance. Burnout has become a war story told with a strange nuance of pride. We've been conditioned to worship our internal oppressors, to see the voice of anxiety not as a warning, but as the voice of ambition. We've mistaken the poison for the medicine for too long. Disconnection from nature is another key factor. Research in environmental psychology consistently shows that time in natural environments reduces rumination, which is the pattern of repetitive negative thinking, a central component of anxiety. Our society has enclosed us in concrete boxes, both physical and mental, distancing us from the natural rhythms that for millennia regulated our nervous system. We are animals out of our natural habitat, and our anxiety is proof of it. Even our diet and sedentary lifestyle contribute. Ultra-processed food and lack of physical movement impact our brain chemistry, making us more susceptible to anxiety loops. Everything is interconnected. Ultimately, denormalizing anxiety is an act of reclamation. It's the reclamation of our attention, our time, our mental sovereignty, and our connection to the real world, to others, and to ourselves. I'm not asking you to abandon your goals or your work. I invite you to pursue them from a new center of gravity, a center based on health and sustainability, not on fear and scarcity, an engine of passion, not panic. Life doesn't have to be a constant emergency. Peace is not a luxury earned in retirement. It's a fundamental right of being here and now, and the first step to claiming it is to see the chains we have accepted as if they were our own skin. Remember, the system won't change on its own. It depends on each of us in our own lives, starting to make choices that prioritize our humanity above the demands of the machine. In conclusion, we have normalized anxiety to the point where it has become the invisible backdrop of our lives, an engine driving a system that often consumes us. But it doesn't have to be this way. Recognizing it not as a personal failing, but as a societal phenomenon is the first and most crucial step towards reclaiming our peace. It's a shift in perspective that returns power and agency over our own lives. We are not broken for feeling anxious in a world that seems designed to provoke anxiety. We are responding coherently to an often incoherent environment. Healing begins when we stop blaming ourselves. I hope this reflection has given you a new lens through which to view an age-old feeling. May it serve not to generate more worry, but to inspire deeper compassion, both for yourself and for others fighting the same battle. The journey to dismantle this invisible engine is long and begins with a single step: awareness. From today, you can choose to see things differently, and that choice is the beginning of all true freedom. We've reached the end of our analysis. We've journeyed from the biology of anxiety to its role in modern sociology, discovering how it has become an invisible pillar of our world. The next time you feel that pressure, remember that you're not alone, and it's not your fault. It's the echo of a larger system. Breathe deep and remember you have the power to choose a different response. The true revolution of our time might not be technological, but a revolution of consciousness. One in which we collectively decide that our well-being is worth more than any productivity metric. Cultivate calm. Defend your rest. Seek genuine connection. These are the acts that silently change the world, starting with yours. In the end, the answer to the initial question is yes. We have normalized anxiety as the engine of our lives. But the good news is that everything that has been normalized can also be denormalized. The power is in our hands. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive. I sincerely appreciate your time and attention in exploring these complex ideas with me. It's a privilege to share this space for reflection with you. I hope this analysis has provided you with value and a new perspective on such a universal and personal topic. Each of these reflections is a seed, and I hope it finds fertile ground in your mind. Remember that knowledge is the first step towards change. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and above all, be kind to yourself on this journey. If this content has made you think, if it has resonated with you, consider subscribing so you don't miss future journeys into the depths of mind and society. Your support allows us to continue creating this type of content. And now I'd love to hear from you. Do you identify with this idea of normalized anxiety? What's your experience? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's read and learn together.